Did you know that some US states rely on Canadian electricity? Yes, you heard that right. Canada has been quietly powering parts of the US for years. But here's the twist. As the US ramps up economic pressure with steep tariffs, Canada is striking back. And with tensions rising, Canada might just flip the switch. Literally. If that happens, entire regions in the US could face major power shortages, with devastating economic consequences. So how did we get here? And what exactly is Canada planning? Let's break it all down. It all started one evening in late 2024 during a private dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump, then president-elect, made a comment that left everyone stunned. Turning to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he remarked, "You know, Canada would do a lot better as America's 51st state." The room fell silent before nervous laughter rippled through the guests. Most assumed he was joking. After all, it was an outrageous idea. But in typical Trump fashion, he wasn't done. He insisted that under US rule, Canadians would pay lower taxes and enjoy a far superior healthcare system. Trudeau gave a polite smile, likely dismissing the remark as dinner table banter. However, Trump wasn't letting it go. Just days later, on December 10th, 2024, he posted on Truth Social, referring to Trudeau not as the Prime Minister of Canada, but as Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. That single post sent the internet into a frenzy. Was he serious? Was this just another classic Trumpism? Reactions ranged from amusement to outrage and sheer confusion, but things didn't stop there. On December 18th, Trump doubled down, claiming that many Canadians actually supported the idea. Although he provided no evidence, that didn't stop his supporters from running with the narrative. Social media buzzed with speculation, news outlets rushed to cover the story, and what began as a casual dinner remark quickly escalated into a major political moment. By early January 2025, Trump intensified the situation. He announced that unless Canada tightened its border security, the US would impose a hefty 25% tariff on all Canadian imports. His reasoning? We're subsidizing Canada for almost $300 billion. Why are we doing that? If we're going to pay for them, they might as well be part of us. The message was clear. Play by his rules or face the consequences. On January 7th, 2025, Trudeau finally responded, and he didn't hold back. With a smirk, he told reporters, "There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever become part of the United States." His firm stance didn't seem to faze Trump. If anything, it fueled him further. On Christmas Day, December 25th, 2024, Trump doubled down on Truth Social. He claimed that if Canada joined the US, taxes would drop by 60%, businesses would double overnight, and Canada would benefit from enhanced military protection. Then came another bold move. On January 7th, 2025, Trump held a press conference clarifying that while military action was off the table, economic pressure was fair game. He argued that a US-Canada merger would boost safety for both nations and save America money on border security. Finally, on February 1st, 2025, Trump officially announced the 25% tariff on all Canadian goods, effective February 4th. Canadian officials were furious. Trudeau and his team wasted no time crafting a response. While the US president was busy making bold claims online, Canada was quietly developing a strategy to fight back. Then, on February 2nd, Trump took to Truth Social once again, reaffirming his stance. He insisted that Canada should embrace its destiny as the cherished 51st state, promising that tariffs would vanish and military security would be guaranteed if they agreed. However, Canada had no intention of giving in. Instead, they prepared a counterattack. In response to President Trump's move to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, the Canadian government announced its own set of tariffs, targeting $155 billion worth of American imports. This included a significant $30 billion in direct trade penalties. Just as tensions were about to boil over, a temporary truce was reached after a direct conversation between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and President Trump. Both sides agreed to pause for 30 days to allow further negotiations. Yet, Canada made it clear if US tariffs returned after the pause, Ottawa was ready to launch an economic counterstrike. But Canada wasn't relying solely on tariffs. Officials were exploring additional pressure tactics. One option included restricting American access to critical Canadian exports like minerals and energy products, resources the US heavily depends on. Another strategy involved barring American companies companies from bidding on Canadian government contracts. Perhaps the boldest move, however, was Canada's strategic pivot toward Asia. Rather than depending on the US as the primary buyer of oil and gas, Canada expanded its exports to countries like China and Japan. The timing was perfect. In May 2024, the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline was completed, nearly tripling its capacity to 890,000 barrels per day. With this new infrastructure in place, Canada could now ship more oil directly to the Pacific coast, offering energy-hungry Asian nations a chance to step in where the US once dominated. Alberta, the heart of Canada's energy industry, wasted no time capitalizing on this new reality in early 2025. Japanese and South Korean refiners, such as INEOS and GS Caltex, had already begun receiving Canadian crude shipments in September 2024. Now, Canada aimed to secure long-term energy partnerships in the region. The energy sector wasn't the only area undergoing change. Provinces were also stepping into the economic arena. Ontario Premier Doug Ford hinted that his province might halt electricity exports to US states like Minnesota, Michigan, and New York unless tariffs were lifted. This was no idle threat. Around 1.5 million Americans depended on that power supply, and a cutoff could spark a serious energy crisis in those states. Beyond energy, Canada was reassessing its broader trade relationships. With a growing desire to reduce reliance on the US, the country sought to strengthen economic ties with Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. Trade agreements such as the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, with the European Union, and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, opened new avenues for Canadian exports beyond North America. As the trade war intensified, an unexpected surge of national pride swept across Canada. Social media buzzed with hashtags encouraging Canadians to buy local and support homegrown businesses. From grocery stores to clothing brands, people consciously shifted away from American products. The government took notice. Prime Minister Trudeau's administration began exploring ways to dismantle long-standing internal trade barriers between provinces. By making it easier for businesses to operate nationwide, Canada aimed to strengthen its domestic market, reducing vulnerability to US economic pressures. Behind closed doors, however, Trudeau harbored deeper concerns. In a private meeting with Canadian business and labor leaders in Toronto, he expressed growing worries about challenges extending far beyond trade disputes. Trudeau raised a troubling possibility. What if Trump's ultimate goal wasn't just economic leverage, but something far more significant? He pointed out that Trump had repeatedly joked about Canada being better off as part of the United States. While these remarks were initially brushed off as lighthearted comments, Trudeau wasn't so sure anymore. Mr. Trump might believe the easiest way to achieve his objectives is by absorbing our country, and that's a real concern, Trudeau warned. According to him, the US wasn't solely interested in trade. They were eyeing Canada's vast natural resources, oil, minerals, and fresh water, assets that would significantly benefit the US if Canada were somehow brought under its control. This realization made Canada's next steps even more urgent, strengthening trade ties with other nations, boosting domestic production, and reinforcing economic independence were no longer just about surviving a tariff battle. They were about safeguarding Canada's future. For years, the United States has relied heavily on Canada for key resources like oil, natural gas, and metals. But recently, something has changed. President Trump's offhand comments about Canada joining the US, once dismissed as jokes, are now raising serious questions. Could there be more to them? It's not just about diplomacy, it's about resources, and big ones at that. Canada sits atop a treasure trove of natural wealth, and US dependence on these resources runs deeper than most realize. Take oil, for instance. It's the single most crucial link between the two nations. Canada ranks as the fourth largest oil producer globally, pumping out approximately 4.6 million barrels daily. Nearly all of this, over 97%, flows directly to the United States, where American refineries process and distribute it nationwide. Without Canadian oil, the US energy system would face a severe crisis. Altogether, Canada's oil trade with the US is valued at a staggering $124 billion annually, making it a major pillar of the Canadian economy. Key pipelines such as Keystone, Enbridge Mainline, and Trans Mountain ensure a steady crude flow, stabilizing prices and keeping US refineries running efficiently. Any disruption would spell a crisis not only for Canada, but also for the United States. With rising trade tensions, some Canadian officials are questioning how long this partnership can remain so one-sided. Beyond oil and gas, nickel is emerging as a critical resource, especially as the world shifts toward electric vehicles. Canada ranks as the 6th largest nickel producer globally, yielding 158,068 tons in 2023. Key production areas include Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Manitoba, with Ontario leading at 39% of total output. Interestingly, nearly half of Canada's nickel exports head to the US, with other major buyers including China, Japan, and the Netherlands. Nickel's significance lies in its use for stainless steel and lithium-ion batteries, essential for electric vehicles and renewable energy storage. As the demand for greener technology surges, nickel has become indispensable. Although Indonesia dominates the global market with 51% of total production, Canada's role as a reliable supplier remains pivotal. At first glance, Trump's comments about NAFTA and Canada may seem like typical off-the-cuff remarks, but a closer look at the numbers reveals a clear pattern. Canada is more than just an ally, it's a lifeline for the United States. Canada supplies critical resources that power the American economy. Canada provides the majority of US imports, essential for American homes and industries, key for electric vehicles and batteries, crucial for manufacturing, defense, and construction. If Canada were to shift its trade focus toward other markets, such as China or Japan, it could send shockwaves through the US economy. This is why Canada's recent efforts to diversify its exports have caught Washington's attention. As global tensions persist, the US might find itself needing Canada far more than Canada needs the US. Canada isn't just known for its stunning landscapes and friendly people, it's a treasure trove of natural resources that the world relies on. From oil and uranium to hydroelectric power and precious metals, Canada supplies the US and many other countries with essential raw materials. But how valuable are these resources, and why does the world, especially the United States, depend on them so heavily? Let's take a deeper look at what makes Canada an economic powerhouse. Notably, aluminum remains one of Canada's biggest exports, with the industry booming in 2024. Valued at $6.5 billion, the sector continues to grow steadily at 2.3% per year. Over the past 5 years, Canada's resource sector has experienced remarkable growth. What's fueling this surge? Rising global demand, increasing exports, and one key advantage: Canada's aluminum production relies on renewable energy. Unlike many countries that depend on coal or fossil fuels, Canadian aluminum is primarily powered by hydroelectricity, making it cleaner and more environmentally friendly. This matters significantly as industries worldwide push for lower carbon emissions. As a result, countries like the United States, $13 billion in imports, Mexico, $363 million, and India, $79 million, heavily depend on Canadian aluminum. While zinc may not make headlines, it plays a vital role in modern life. Canada ranks among the top producers of this essential metal, which is used primarily to protect steel from rust. Zinc is found in everything from skyscrapers and bridges to cars and ships. In 2022, Canada mined 250,000 metric tons of zinc, with the majority coming from Manitoba and Quebec. Although production slightly dipped from the previous year, zinc exports still generated $1.25 billion in revenue. Major buyers like South Korea, Switzerland, Australia, and the United States continue to rely on Canadian zinc for their construction and manufacturing industries. However, if there's one resource that truly positions Canada as a strategic energy powerhouse, it's uranium. Essential for nuclear energy, uranium gives Canada a significant edge thanks to the Athabasca Basin in northern Saskatchewan, home to some of the world's richest uranium deposits. These deposits boast ore concentrations far higher than the global average, making them some of the most valuable on the planet. In 2022, Canada produced 7,000 tons of uranium, meeting 15% of global demand and securing its position as the second largest producer worldwide. This was a major rebound from the previous year's 4,000 tons. Impressively, Canada exported nearly 12,000 tons of uranium in 2022, generating $1.38 billion in revenue. The United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Germany, and the United States are among Canada's largest customers, relying heavily on Canadian uranium to power their nuclear plants. Looking ahead, Canada is projected to double its uranium production by 2035 as more nations turn to nuclear energy as a cleaner alternative. When it comes to clean energy, few countries outperform Canada. Hydroelectric power dominates the nation's electricity production, accounting for 61.7% of total energy output in 2022. That year, Canada generated nearly 394,000 gigawatt-hours of hydroelectricity, securing its position as the world's third largest producer of hydropower, with an installed capacity of over 82,000 megawatts spread across 595 hydro plants. Canada stands tall as a global leader in renewable energy. Canada plays a crucial role in the global energy market, with electricity being a major export. In 2022 alone, the country sold over 50 watt-hours of electricity to the US, generating $5.8 billion in revenue. Provinces such as Quebec, British Columbia, and Manitoba lead this energy trade, ensuring a consistent power supply to American cities. By prioritizing renewable energy, Canada demonstrates that sustainability and profitability can go hand in hand, making its resources essential in global markets. While diamonds are often associated with Africa or Russia, Canada has quietly emerged as one of the world's top diamond producers. Mines in the Northwest Territories, including Ati Dik and Gacho Kuwe, extract millions of carats each year, supplying high-quality gemstones to international markets. In 2019, Canadian mines produced 18.6 million carats of rough diamonds valued at $2.25 billion. Although production slightly decreased to 16.2 million carats in 2023, Canada still exported $1.7 billion worth of diamonds that year. Canadian diamonds are highly sought after due to their traceability. Each stone is laser etched with a unique mark, such as a maple leaf or polar bear, ensuring its ethical origin. This commitment to transparency has made Canadian diamonds a preferred choice for buyers aiming to avoid conflict stones, with major markets like Belgium, India, and the US continuing to rely on Canada for their diamond supply. Potash may not shine like gold or diamonds, but it's one of the most vital resources for global agriculture. As a key ingredient in fertilizer, potash supports the growth of crops that feed billions. In 2023, Canada solidified its position as the world's largest potash producer, generating 13 million metric tons. The industry contributed an impressive $16.8 billion in 2022, making potash Canada's top-ranked commodity by value. With food security becoming an increasing concern worldwide, demand for potash is expected to rise. Canada's dominance in this market provides a significant advantage in global trade, especially as countries seek stable sources of agricultural inputs. While softwood lumber exports declined by 177%, other segments experienced significant growth. Newsprint rose by 35% and printing paper by 33%, balancing the overall industry's performance. Remarkably, Canada produces 32% of the world's newsprint, cementing its position as a market leader for decades. Canada's trade relationship with the United States has long been the backbone of its economy. In 2023, more than 56% of Canada's mineral exports were destined for its southern neighbor. China followed with 7%, the UK at 6%, Japan at 4%, and South Korea at 3%. However, as trade tensions escalate, Canada is actively seeking to diversify its economic partnerships. Investments in Asian and European markets are central to Canada's broader strategy of reducing reliance on the US and securing alternative trade routes. This pivot goes beyond mere economics. It's about safeguarding sovereignty. Some analysts suggest that recent US trade policies aim to apply pressure on Canada, potentially seeking greater economic influence. Nevertheless, Canada remains firm, signaling that it won't be coerced into agreements that threaten its independence. With new trade alliances emerging and economic policies evolving, the coming months could be pivotal in defining Canada's global role. Will the nation forge new partnerships, or will rising tensions with the US reach a breaking point?